Owning a peaceful cabin in the mountains had always been my escape, a retreat from the noise and chaos of city life. But when I arrived one weekend and found my locks changed, the porch lights on, and strangers lounging on my deck with drinks in hand, I knew something was terribly wrong. What I didn't know was who was behind it, until I heard the name Karen spoken like she was the landlord. That's when I decided, game on. And this time, I had the deeds, the footage, and a plan. The cabin had been in my family for over 30 years, nestled deep in the Blue Ridge Mountains, far from prying neighbors and nosy HOA busybodies. It was my father's pride and joy, and when he passed, I inherited it. Over the years, I'd renovated it bit by bit: solar panels, hardwood floors, even a wraparound deck with a grill big enough to feed an army. I didn't visit as often as I wanted to. Work in the city kept me busy, but I always let the local ranger know when I was heading up. This weekend was supposed to be one of those quiet getaways, just me, a bag of groceries, and the silence of the woods. But the moment I pulled up the gravel driveway, I knew something was wrong. There were two SUVs parked outside, neither of them mine. Music thumped lightly from inside. I could see shadows moving behind the curtains, and worst of all, the locks were changed. I tried my key. Nothing. I knocked once, twice. A blonde woman in her 40s opened the door, wearing oversized sunglasses and a bathrobe like she owned the place. "Can I help you?" she said, sipping from a wine glass. "Yeah," I replied, holding up my key. "This is my cabin. What are you doing here?" She scoffed. "You must be mistaken. I rented this place from Karen, paid for the whole weekend." I blinked. "Karen?" "Yes, Karen Monroe, from the HOA office. She manages all the properties up here." "There's no HOA." That was the first alarm bell. "Look," I said, trying to stay calm. "I own this cabin. I have the deeds. I didn't authorize any rental, and there's no HOA here." She frowned. "Well, I don't know what to tell you, but I'm not leaving. I paid." Before I could respond, another woman walked out behind her, short, loud, and dripping in attitude. "You the guy harassing my guests?" she barked. There she was, Karen. She looked exactly how you'd imagine a suburban tyrant, perfectly manicured, scowl carved into her face, phone clutched like a weapon. "You're trespassing," I said firmly. "This is private property." Karen rolled her eyes. "Actually, this is part of managed mountain grounds, and I'm the acting community supervisor. The original owner, your father, I presume, was behind on HOA dues, and we've taken temporary control to recoup costs." I stared at her. "That's not how property law works. This isn't even in an HOA." She grinned. "Well, you'll need to talk to my lawyer. Meanwhile, my guests aren't going anywhere." At that point, I didn't want to get physical or cause a scene, so I backed away, pulled out my phone, and started recording. "Just so you know," I said, "you're illegally occupying my property. I have the title. I'm calling the sheriff." Karen smirked. "Go ahead, Sheriff Daniels. He's my cousin." Well, that changed things. I left, for now, but not to give up. I went straight into town and met with a friend of mine, Mark, who worked at the county recorder's office. Within 15 minutes, I had printed proof of ownership, dated taxes, and confirmation no HOA existed in that region. I also called up a friend, Alicia, a property rights attorney who loved taking down fraudulent land grabs like this. "Oh, she picked the wrong cabin," Alicia said. The next morning, I returned, this time with Alicia and two deputies from the next county over. We didn't bring the local sheriff. I didn't trust him, not after what Karen had said. But what we saw when we pulled in shocked even the deputies. The place had been turned into some kind of party rental. Strung lights, outdoor heaters, a DJ booth on the deck, and about 15 people casually drinking mimosas on my patio furniture. I marched up with the documents in hand. One of the deputies called out, "Everyone, stop what you're doing. This is an active trespassing investigation." Karen came storming out in leggings and a branded hoodie that said HOA Queen. "You again," she spat. "What, did you bring backup now?" Alicia stepped forward. "Yes, legal backup, and the county sheriff's office. You've unlawfully changed locks and rented a property you don't own." Karen scoffed. "I told you, it was abandoned. The taxes weren't paid." I held up the document. "Paid in full, every year, including this one." The deputies turned to Karen. "Ma'am, do you have a contract? Any ownership deed? Permission from the owner?" She faltered. "Well, I have an arrangement with the county office." "No," said Deputy Lopez. "You have nothing. You've committed fraud, impersonated an HOA, and violated state rental laws." One by one, the guests began gathering their things, looking more and more embarrassed. Karen stood frozen. I walked up to her, phone still recording, and said, "If you leave quietly now, I won't press charges for lock tampering or property damage. But if you don't, I promise you, you'll be explaining this to a judge next week." She said nothing, but her face said everything. She had gambled on the cabin being abandoned and saw a chance to make easy cash through Airbnb-style rentals. What she didn't expect was for the real owner, me, to show up with the law on his side. The deputies supervised as Karen and her guests packed up. I watched her loading bins into her SUV, still too proud to look me in the eye. I didn't say anything more. But what I was planning next, well, she wouldn't be getting away that easily. The guests were gone. Karen was gone. But I wasn't done. Sure, I could have celebrated just getting my property back. But the audacity of what she'd done, changing locks, forging rental claims, turning my late father's sanctuary into a weekend rental circus, it cut deep. This wasn't just trespassing. This was personal. The next day, I filed a full report at the district courthouse with my lawyer, Alicia. She helped me press formal charges for trespassing, unlawful rental, property fraud, and impersonating a legal entity, since Karen had posed as an HOA official in a region that had no HOA. The paperwork was airtight. We even submitted the full video I'd taken of her admitting she took control and rented it. Alicia smirked the whole time. She's going to regret ever hearing the letters HOA. Now, here's where things got really interesting. A week later, Alicia got a call from a local news station. Apparently, Karen had previously pulled similar stunts, trying to regulate other non-HOA mountain properties, handing out fake warning notices, and even threatening people with imaginary fine schedules. But no one had ever taken her to court before. I gave the station my footage. They loved it. The segment aired Friday night. The title? Fake HOA Queen Busted on Private Property. Owner Fights Back with Proof. The video of Karen yelling at me while holding her wine glass, claiming she had authority, went viral in less than 48 hours. TikTok clips, Facebook shares, even HOA forums were lit up with comments like, "How do people like this even exist? My grandma owns land up there. And that lady left fake notes on her gate, too." The fallout was swift. First, the county initiated an investigation into Karen's activities, not just at my cabin, but across the region. Turns out she had no legal license to manage rentals and had been illegally profiting off multiple cabin owners by listing their properties online and splitting the fees with a shady property manager friend. Second, her real estate license, which she did hold for suburban home sales, was suspended indefinitely pending legal review. Third, several of her past guests tried suing her, claiming she'd scammed them into thinking they were renting legit vacation spots, and since I had already submitted a police report, she had no defense. Now, as satisfying as all this was, I still felt there was one piece missing: closure. So I did something a little theatrical. I hired a contractor to install a large custom sign at the edge of my driveway. Bold letters carved into the wood read, "Private property, not part of any HOA. Trespassers will be prosecuted. Cabin now equipped with 4K surveillance cameras. Smile, Karen." I also installed one of those motion-triggered speakers, so anytime someone walked up to the front porch uninvited, a voice would announce, "Hi, you're being recorded. If you're not the property owner, please leave immediately." Oh, and I added it to Google Maps officially as not a Karen's cabin. It stuck. To this day, hikers and tourists still snap selfies with the sign. A few weeks later, I got a call from Alicia. "Guess who's agreed to a settlement?" she asked. Karen had caved. Between the criminal charges and her real estate license suspension, her lawyers advised her to settle civilly to avoid even more public embarrassment and financial ruin. The terms? She paid all court fees. She reimbursed me for locksmith work, lost rental potential, and property damage. She publicly apologized in writing, my condition, which I had framed and hung in the cabin's bathroom. It reads, "To the rightful property owner, I deeply regret my actions and acknowledge that I acted without authority or legal justification. I accept full responsibility and assure you and the community that I will never attempt such interference again. Karen Monroe." I couldn't have asked for a better ending. Well, almost. The next time I visited the cabin, I brought along my sister's German Shepherd, Max. We sat on the deck, grilling burgers, watching the sunset. And just for fun, I played the viral news clip on my phone one more time, laughing at how Karen had once claimed the place was hers. Max barked happily. "Don't worry, boy," I said, tossing him a piece of meat. "She's not coming back." If stories like this make you smile, and if you've ever dealt with a neighbor who thinks they're the sheriff of the street, be sure to subscribe to our channel for more real-life revenge stories. You won't want to miss what's coming next.